Sharks.
We default to the boat for almost everything. Like we want to be in a boat. We feel kind of handcuffed on the shore.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, I haven't caught that many big fluke. I've caught a couple nice ones. I got one over 10 pounds.
Nice.
Joe's never got that 10-pounder yet.
No.
And, size. That's why it's fishing, right? It's like I know really good fishermen who's never cracked 10 pounds from a boat, and I know very good fishermen who never caught a largemouth over 5 pounds in Jersey.
He's just trying to make me feel better. So Mike Herman and Yellow Dog Paddle had another crazy week on a couple of the reservoirs. Bunch of skillful anglerfish here. 4 perch over 15 inches.
Damn.
1 salmon over 22 inches. 2 more bullhead catfish 15 and 16 inches. A smallmouth 21 inches. Those are just the skillful anglerfish that he caught. The other kid on the boat, we shared the picture on the Instagram. If you check Yellow Dog Paddle Instagram or ours, kid had their first pretty large yellow perch on the boat. That was pretty cool. Really cool picture.
Yeah, and if you're looking to get a kid into fishing, this is one of the best ways to do it, especially if it's a little bit older of a kid. In other words, if they're not going to be that impressed by maybe just going bluegill fishing, you want a chance at something nicer.
What's wrong with
they don't
bluegill
have the
fishing?
skills yet to cast.
I love bluegills.
Bait. What was that?
I love bluegills.
We all love bluegills, but I'm just saying, if you want to take your kids fishing to the next level, going out trolling these reservoirs with Yellow Dog Paddle, I mean, that I don't think you could beat that, because it's going to take no skill from the kid, no technique or strength or anything like that. Mike's going to find the fish. Mike's going to hook the fish, trolling. The kid's going to get to fight the fish in, reeling it in, and, catch possibly a trophy fish without having...
It's more of a high-action, entertaining fishing. Hello and welcome to episode number 59 of the NJ Multi-Species Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Santiago, and this is my co-host, Chris Pereira. What I just did, Max Wilson will never be able to imitate, ever. He could try, but he can't do it. He's a failure.
He also couldn't find this.
No.
And trying to imitate me on this stupid podcast without holding a bobber mug is pointless.
Everything he said was not even what we say. It was funny, though. I give him credit for that. I don't know how he got in your house and into your bedroom with that mustache. That's even creepier.
That's weird.
Reports. Fishing reports. Yellow Dog Paddles fishing reports in their thing about all their skillful anglerfish, and Mackin's fishing reports in that. Smallmouth fishing continues to be very good. Gen Juan's been very quiet. I guess he's bouncing around the salt water. That's why he vanished.
Yeah, they're those guys are kind of surveying
they're scouting for the Fluke, right?
Yeah, for the Fluke contest. They're big Fluke contest tournament guys.
Yeah.
Which I always thought. I mean, that was cool. I'd love to do that one day. Do a competitive Fluke tournament or something. That'd be neat.
Chris Lido said that they did destroy the sea bass last Monday on sand deals. Said the tile fishing was slow, but the wind was pushing real hard. He got a 23.5 pound bluefin. But what is this?
Oh, they got a bluefin?
No, a 23.5 pound blue line within ounces of the record.
Damn. Yeah, the blue line tiles don't get anywhere near as big as the golden, so that's a freaking huge one. How
So
close was it to the record?
He said it was within ounces of the record, and he said there was the most whales out there eating sand eels he's ever seen in his life.
Ah, that's cool. I mean,
First night trip, just real quick to finish it off. The first night trip season of the first night trip of the season for the gambler, they do a 5-hour night trip where they put squid under the lights and jig wrecks for blackfish and ling. First one wasn't that great. They only brought up like a bunch of ling, like 23 keeper ling. Chris said that he thinks that'll get better as time goes on. That's a trip I'm going to go on, probably.
And it sounds like, from what he's reporting offshore there, it sounds like it's shaping up to be, it could be a pretty epic tuna season.
Oh, yeah, it does. That seems to be like there's going to be tuna fish everywhere. It's something I'm going to have to start doing this year for the first time.
You think you can overcome your fear?
Yeah, I think I can. We'll see. I think Chris DeGennaro is going to deal with me, and me and him are going to conquer it together as a tag team. Chuck Manny continues to waffle the big stripers. The numbers of big stripers are dwindling per day. I think yesterday he had his lowest day yet, which was 8 fish over 40 pounds, which for most people is still a phenomenal day, but only 8 fish was Chuck's smallest, lowest pull of the year, I think.
Yeah, I think what's happening is, if I read what he said correctly, the bluefish and the dogfish are just kind of interfering. So when you're setting out a spread of eels and all of them are getting bitten in half within the first couple of minutes, it gets kind of inefficient to keep setting them out for the stripers.
What else? Anything else? We have to. Tonight's guest is Roger I, who's going to talk about some really lightweight fluking tactics, and he does a lot of cooking. Really cool guest. So we have to kind of get through the fishing reports quick. But
yeah, we got a fishing report in from the Blackhawk up in Niantic, Connecticut.
That's an NJF boat.
Yeah, another NJ Fishing sponsor boat up there. I know I've never been up there. Guys seem to love going up there. They jump on this boat all the time from down here. They got some good porgy trips going right now. There's been some ups and downs, they're saying. Earlier in the week, the fishing was pretty good. Said by the end of the week, it was kind of a pick, but it's kind of been going up and down, so you never know. They got some private charters going out up there as well, and they've been doing really well with the stripers up there.
What's the name of that boat?
Blackhawk.
The Blackhawk. How far of a ride is that for us?
I'm not 100% sure, but I just went up to Cape Cod, so I'd say
that has to be within 2 hours.
For you, yeah, probably. For me, it's probably closer to 3, but yeah, somewhere in there. I'd say 2 to 3 hours, probably depending where you are and if you can avoid the traffic.
And it's probably cheaper because everything's cheaper than it is in New Jersey, I would think.
I don't know about it in Connecticut, but
yeah,
yeah, but they've been doing pretty well with the striped bass, and they're going out and getting their keeper, their slot keeper stripers pretty good, and they still got openings for left in July. So if anyone's looking to take a little trip up there, fishing's pretty good. Our porgy season doesn't start till, I'm not sure what the date is, but because I don't really care. But if you're looking to porgy fish, they're doing pretty well up there.
Why you like bluegill and pan fishing and crappie fishing? Why does the porgy like filling a coop?
I've explained this before. I'll explain it again, and I'll even say it again later on in the episode. Don't ask me how I know that. If I can target porgy on super light gear, that's cool. I'm cool with that.
Is there someone telling you you're not allowed to bring super light gear?
No, the problem with porgy fishing is a lot of the times you need a sinker to hold this. They're smaller fish, right? They got smaller
Yeah.
mouths. You can't always necessarily use like so for sea bass, I'm using a sea bass jig. It's whatever, 1.5 ounces, 1.75 ounces, something like that. I'm using super light gear. I can throw it around, dig it, pop the sea bass. They got nice size mouths on them. Can't really do that with a porgy because their mouths are. You got to use a smaller hook, so you got to do it in some way that's feeding them the smaller hook with the bait. So a lot of times you end up having to use a bait rig. So you're using 4 or 5 ounces of lead with little hooks off of it, and you're reeling up these porgies on heavier gear because you need the heavier gear to deal with the lead sinker.
I mean, reeling up sea bass on heavy gear sucks too.
Right. I don't like to do that either.
Okay. All right. Well, I see what you're saying then.
So yeah.
All right. Let's see if we can get Roger. Can we get Roger in now, Deuce? Can we bring the guest in?
Real quick, before we get him in, can I just I got to give a shout out to Between Alarms Charters up in Cape Cod.
Oh, sure.
I headed up there for the weekend. He had an opening Sunday morning, so Saturday, me and Katie, hung around Cape Cod. Real nice place. If anyone hasn't been up there, it's pretty cool. It's not touristy at all. Like
Is
the
it
Jersey Shore.
is it Cape Mayish?
Kind of, in the sense that, and it's even less. So you know how when you go to Cape May, there's no like McDonald's in Cape May, or like
Yeah.
I guess some parts of Cape May have the tall hotels, but like this section, at least this section of Cape Cod that we were in like the Brewster Dennis area, there's no like McDonald's, there's no Burger Kings. It's all like local businesses, and there's no like Holiday Inn 5-story hotels. It's like smaller, like
Mom and
locally
pop
owned
stuff.
hotels and like bed and breakfasts and stuff. And it's pretty cool. The private beaches is kind of annoying. Like you can't go down to the beach and walk the beach like you can on the Jersey Shore because there's private beaches up there. I guess people can own the actual beaches there. And so you go on a public beach, you can walk like 20 yards in each direction, and that's it. But anyway, it's a nice place. If you haven't been up there, it's definitely worth checking out. But the flounder fishing up there, dude, I know you wanted to come and you couldn't. Dude, the flounder fishing, I'm not even exaggerating. It was insane. It wasn't like drop and reel fishing, like you still had to work for them a little bit, but every fish was a keeper. I think we threw back 2 shorts.
What's the size limit there?
It's like we used to. It's like 12 and a half.
12 and a half.
But we're throwing back 13 inches.
8 per person?
Yeah. But the average size was like 14 to 16 inches. I mean, I caught a 16-inch winter flounder up here a couple years ago, and it was like the biggest one I've ever seen. They put it in, I think, the In Fisherman magazine, because it was like, oh my God, a 16.5-inch winter flounder. What? Dude, we caught like 10 of them. Like, it was not. Katie had a 19.5-inch one. Like, dude, it's such an awesome fishery that
was it the sitting on the anchor with the chum pots?
No. It was like fluke fishing, dude. We drifted over these like flats, like a mud flat that turned into like a rocky, harder bottom. And I didn't have too much time to mess around with like different jigs and bucktails. I just kind of went off of his guidance, and we used the basic, like, 2 ounce. No, just 2 ounce sinker with the double long shanked hooks with the little yellow like twister tails on them, and then you just tip them with a little sliver of clam.
No shit.
Yeah, and we drifted, and you just kind of worked it along the bottom, popped it every once in a while, kick up some bottom silt, and yeah, dude, it was awesome. If anyone in New Jersey is looking to like relive the glory days of the winter flounder fishery here, plus some, because it's better than I think it even ever was here, and it's only about 5 hours away if you can avoid the traffic. And that fishery is lights out, just awesome.
And
I'm not even exaggerating.
Fluke is really delicious, but Fluke really just tastes like shitty flounder. I mean,
Oh yeah,
the winter flounder is far superior. And I'm not bashing Fluke. It's one of my favorite, but the winter flounder is just. I think it's because they're so much smaller and the fillets are thinner. It's just better.
dude,
Hopefully you'll share some of that this way.
I saved some for you.
All right, thank you. All right, can we get the guest now? Are you done bragging about your winter flounder skills?
No, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, like, I just needed to do a big shout out to Between Alarms Charters.
You really have my attention with that because, like I always talk about it, that was like a mainstay of something that I did since I was a kid. Like, winter flounder opening day started the fishing season, but I never drifted. I never saw a boat drift. Every boat I ever did that with was anchored with chum pots. So drifting for them just sounds really cool.
Dude, it was awesome.
How deep is the water?
We were fishing like 35, 45 feet, I think.
That's really cool. Jigging them from that. That's awesome.
I brought my ultralight inshore Shimano Travala, the green one, and I brought this rod that I use for drop shotting for freshwater, like drop shotting smallmouths. And dude, at one point I was doubling with them. And these fish, I mean, they're pretty violent. Like a 16, 17-inch winter flounder hits that freshwater like light rod.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dude, I got some nice video. I threw one of them up. Katie took my setup and caught the biggest fish of the day, but that's all right.
Okay, can we get Roger I in, please?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're supposed to go fishing with Fallon Wednesday after work. Chris, I don't even know if I told you about that yet or if you're coming or not, but
you didn't mention.
All right. Well, Wednesday we're supposed to fish with Fallon and Mackin. If you're watching this, it already happened. Fallon, I don't think he has many hybrid photos of one at the surface, so we're going for one. If you're going, I guess there's room. But yeah, Mackin's still night fishing, but he also has a daytime bite now. Because I know he's been like waiting to call Fallon to get in the daylight, so he finally made the call, and Fallon's going in. The Redeye trips continue to just do phenomenally. He still has a long waiting list of guys that are just matching up every week. Like I see Kronk is on the Redeye, the Surveyor. I've seen he was on the Redeye again. So that seems to be really cool. Like if you just want to get out for the night bite, this Redeye thing seems to be like. I think when Eddie first pitched us that idea, I was kind of like, well, I don't know about that, and it just totally seemed to work out. So it's doing really good. So if you are like a solo angler or you're just bored one night and want to go fishing, like just text Eddie, because if he has someone on the schedule looking to go, you guys are going, and it's that simple. So
and this night bite, I just gotta say, for anyone who's not familiar with it, it's not going to last straight through the summer.
No.
Like, yeah, you could catch fish at night straight through the summer, but what we're seeing right now, I mean, in my opinion, we're on borrowed time with this night bite. It usually doesn't stay this good this late into the season.
I've caught some good hybrids on the 4th of July, and that was the latest ever. And that was all top water, no subsurface. The bite that we're talking about is basically based off the herring spawn, and the herring don't spawn forever. So once the herring spawn ends, so does the bite. Fish go back to their daily feeding patterns, and then in the fall they'll switch to chicken livers for a reason no one understands, because there are no chicken livers in the lake. Okay, so tonight's guest is Mr. Roger I. He's been fishing basically his entire life. But around 2017 is when he decided to make his YouTube channel and really focus in on fluking and cooking. He's very, very well known for his cooking. Me and Chris got a ton of emails about his cooking. So we'd like to introduce Mr. Roger I. Welcome to the NJ Multi-Species Podcast, sir.
Oh,
What's going on?
hello. What's going on, guys?
What's up, Roger? How you doing?
Good.
Hey, real quick before we get started, do you remember you and I met at Merrill Creek years ago? That's correct, right?
I was wondering about that, and whether or not we should even mention the name of the lake. But yes.
The owners of that place are destroying it to all holy hell, so it doesn't matter what we call. We can mention it all we want.
Yeah, between that and all the people I see with livestock these days, I don't think that place is going to last much longer.
It's a whole thing with their time. Have you been there recently?
I went a couple times this spring, and it's okay. Like, I try to get out before the bass lock up on bed because I don't want to see the bed fishing. Other than that, I mean, it's a lot fewer trips I make out there these days, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, do you still, at this point now, do you still fish for a lot of other stuff, or are you mostly concentrated just on the shallow water fluke stuff?
So all summer I'm basically fluking into the fall, and then after that and before that, freshwater bass fishing. So
Largemouth bass?
largemouth and smallmouth, probably more smallmouth the last few years, but I'm starting to get a little bit into the swim bait stuff, and but smallies is probably the one species I spent the most amount of time focused on. And it's funny because I exchanged PMs with Chris a long time ago, and figuring out those smallies at these herring lakes, that was definitely sort of a learning process. But once you figure it out, that's what I did for like 3 years straight. Just nothing but deep open water smallmouth, which is the most fun for me.
And what was cool, Joe, is like, so I wasn't really targeting the smallmouth in the way that Roger wanted to, but I was accidentally catching some while I was lake trout fishing, and so I kind of I told him what was happening to me, kind of, and then he just expanded on that, and then I kind of, by sharing a little piece of something, I learned more while bouncing it off of him. You know what I mean? It's really cool how it just kind of like you share a little bit of information, you get a little information back. It's just kind of that cool networking thing that I feel like it was. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's the right amount of sharing, right? A lot of people overshare, and then that's not really fun for anyone. But just
Right.
Is it basically like the same way you lake trout fish, but just in shallower water? Or...
No, it's really not. I just was kind of accidentally catching him, and we were just talking like at the ramp, and I was kind of like, this was happening, that was happening. We're not going to share it here, Joe. We're not telling you.
Damn it. Now, Roger, the other really interesting thing about you, you've actually turned this into a business. You've been able to make it in somewhat of a business.
Yeah, so that started. So my cousin was hosting a lot of his videos on my channel for a couple of years. So I got him into fluking, sort of like the light tackle fluking stuff, and he got really into it. So for a good 2 years, he was supplying most of the fluke content when I was out chasing smallies all summer, fall. And then we will both get a lot of DMs at the time about, do you guide? Do you take people out fishing? And I never even considered it. But he's more of an entrepreneur than I am. So he was like, you know what, let's give this a shot. Let's do one of these what we call private lessons. And then I soon joined him, and that was very enjoyable. Like we both did that for I think a whole season and a half. But then over the winter, I figured, let's try to do like a virtual course where people can refer to it over and over again, as opposed to just like one session on the sand. So that's kind of how it started, and then now like it's only two things that I'm selling. It's the virtual lesson, which is focused on like the mechanics of jigging, and the other is this spinner blade attachment, which is just basically an accessory to your gulp. You know, once you get the tails bitten off, you can add. You have a little pack here. It's just a little spinner blade, has a screw lock. You know, and I went through dozens of different blades to find the exact one that fits sort of that 1/4 ounce jig head.
You kind of modified that item, and now you have like one that fits your exact, like what you're doing and what you're kind of showing other people how to what to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, because you know, like the size matters. If you go too large or too small, like too large, your jig never reaches bottom.
Yeah.
And too small, there's like it's kind of pointless. So you want like the most amount of flash and vibration without slowing that jig down, which I always found very important. Is speed triggers a lot of bites. So you kind of
Yeah.
want a jig to move as quickly as it could without too much of a drag on the back of it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Makes
I've
sense.
also I've noticed on a lot of your videos you're a big fan of downsizing and going small too. Like I noticed you go small a lot.
Yeah, and that that's really a freshwater thing for me. Like, like anyone who fishes Jersey or the Northeast for bass, it's like you either downsize in line and bait, or you go really big glide baits. And like a lot of that middle territory, those fish have seen them. Like they've seen a million middle-sized crankbaits. But if you go down to like a 1/4 ounce, a 1/8 ounce, sort of a shad plug, and you can move it very quickly, that tends to get a little bit better results, especially if you're fishing behind people, on a weekend or something. So I kind of like the fluke. The main bait we use is the 6-inch jerk shad, and pair that to a 1/4 ounce head. And that to me is, that size, it's a large enough profile that we probably have at this point over 8 or 9 fish over 7 pounds from shore, and a couple over 8. Um, it's large enough to move fish, but it's small enough that you'll catch 12-inch fluke all the time. So
Yeah.
that's like that 6-inch jerk shad, like not the 5-inch, but the 6, seems to be that happy medium.
And now, like when you talk about fluke fishing, most guys they're thinking they're getting in a boat, they're drifting. That's how they're fluke fishing.
Yeah.
I know Joe and I myself, I'm guilty of this as well. And Joe, we always, for pretty much any kind of fishing other than carp fishing or maybe cat fishing or stuff like that,
Sharks.
we default to the boat for almost everything. Like we want to be in a boat, we feel kind of handcuffed on the shore.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, I haven't caught that many big fluke. I've caught a couple nice ones. I got one over 10 pounds.
Nice.
Joe's never got that 10-pounder yet.
No.
And,
But
size, that's why it's fishing, right? It's like I know really good fishermen who's never cracked 10 pounds from a boat. And I know very good fishermen who, never caught a largemouth over 5 pounds in Jersey.
He's just trying to make me feel better.
No, and I know
it
guys
seems that way.
who started like 2 seasons ago and they've caught giant fish. Like I have one person who came out on a private lesson. The next week he had a fish that was almost 9 pounds from shore. I mean, that's a fish of several lifetimes, right?
Oh
That's
yeah.
awesome.
And this is a guy who fished maybe for a year and a half.
Do you get seasick?
Not really, although definitely not from a kayak. But I would take boning Is that what it is? Yeah. So boning or Dramamine when I go out on like a charter or party boat. But
Gotcha.
yeah.
I guess my biggest question would be when it comes to like surf fishing, you kind of walk up to the beach and it's basically like the biggest lake you've ever seen in your life, and the whole thing looks exactly the same. Do
Yeah.
you just walk the beach casting, looking for a bite, or are you looking for like cuts and sandbars and specific areas to fish?
Yeah. So I would, obviously you want to cast to good looking water. So in North Jersey, we're pretty lucky. Like our beaches tend to have a deeper lip. There's a deeper cut at that first break. If you go down south to like Island Beach State Park or LBI, those are very flat rolling beaches. And down there, it's it's a little bit more subtle. Like there could be like a 2 foot depression that will hold a lot of fish. Whereas here, like our primary structure is the actual lip itself. So a lot of those fish will either ambush right at the first break, or they will follow your jig in, and that's the place where they choose to pin it against, that kind of vertical shore. So that kind of simplifies things. And then you have all the stuff in between, which is a lot of jetty country. And, so I fish all the obvious structure, but I also don't walk more than 30 feet without making a cast, because a lot of fish are kind of where you don't expect them to be. And I think a lot of times people, they overthink their ability to kind of predict where fish will actually be. A fluke is going to just swim along the shore, feed, and then just kind of settle down. And that can be anywhere. So, even in freshwater, like I've caught some of my biggest bass on like do nothing banks, things that most people won't even stop on. Like they're going to go fish the point and the secondary point and drop offs. But a lot of fish are just in the middle of nowhere. So,
Yeah.
And if you're pressed for time or something, obviously you're going to be more picky about
right.
what you're targeting. But I think you're spot on. Like if you have the time, and this goes for almost any kind of fishing, I would say, hit
Yep.
everything. Like
Yeah.
there's no wasted cast for the most part.
No.
I guess if it goes in a tree or something, but
Yeah.
even then, if it goes over the tree branch and drops in, I've
Yep.
caught fish like that too.
Yep.
Do
Exactly.
you primarily want to be fishing past the breakers, or should you be also fishing right in the wash too?
Yeah. So, like, it really depends. Like, the thing that dictates your casting angles the most is current. And most of the time out front in the surf, there's not much current. There's a lot more wave action. And then also like the wind direction. So sometimes like you're really only able to cast in like a very narrow band. But other than that, I would make, say I have completely calm conditions, I will make the first cast just perpendicular. And then the next cast may be at an angle, sort of into the current. And there's no fish, and I'll move 10, 15 feet and repeat. If all my fish are coming from very close to the break, then I'll kind of shorten my cast and then cover more distance on foot laterally. But then, if you're only getting bit at your feet, like at that first break, it doesn't mean the fish are there. Sometimes the fish will just follow in, and then that's sort of their last chance before they can do something about it. So then you kind of have to adjust. But those are just, the main thing is covering water. Like a lot of people go out on shore and they just kind of put down their stakes and their, and then they just stay there all day. That's not the way to do for fluking. Maybe chunking for stripers or something like that, but definitely not for fluke.
Yeah, some guys just want to relax and maybe catch
Right.
something, and that's cool. I mean, if that's what they want
Nothing
to
wrong
do.
with that. Yeah.
But
You never know. If the bait's
yeah,
out there, you do never know.
yeah, I know. But like Roger's like me and like Joe most of the time. I mean, we're out there to catch fish. I mean, Relaxing is cool, but
I literally tell my wife when we go to the beach, like, because I think the beach is the most boring place on earth.
Yeah.
But if you just let me cast one bunker chunk into the water, I could sit there all day, no problem.
there you go. That solves that problem. And you actually, Roger, you kind of answered my question, because I was going to ask, and Joe goes down to Wildwood too. I go down to Wildwood on vacation, and there's no close lip in most
No.
spots down there. And
Oh.
it's the very south of New Jersey. Cape May too, same thing.
Yeah.
Well, Cape May has some spots that drop off pretty quick, I guess.
You have to swim 2 miles to get past the breakers in Wildwood.
Yeah.
So basically, you kind of already answered my question. It's probably not worth fluke fishing from shore from spots like that.
Well, no, I mean, people do catch, and like I said, sometimes you might have to adjust. Like up here, I'm using a 1/4 ounce, like almost 99% of the time. There's almost never any need to go heavier than that.
When you say 1/4 ounce, are you talking like a bucktail or just like a regular ball head jig?
It's a ball. Yeah.
Joe, did you even watch the videos I sent you?
No, not yet.
No, that's
Oh
fine.
my!
Yeah. Oh, I just use.
Well, no one listening has watched. Well, no, a lot of people listening haven't watched
Yeah,
them
no,
either. So I'm
that's
asking
perfect.
you.
Like the main one we use is the Gammy 1/4 ounce. It's a 3/0 hook, so it's just a plain jig head. And if you want to use bucktails, that's fine too. I don't think it adds or subtracts anything. But the main thing is we don't use any teasers. So just the jig.
Really?
And yeah, so
That's really gonna affect that jig action that he's looking for. That
yeah.
pop and fall.
Yeah, it's that speed, and the thing with teasers is it's interesting because John Skinner started that whole thing. Like I've seen high-low rigs before John Skinner's videos, but everyone uses the high-low rig because the teaser is sort of like a drop shot, and it's sort of at the level you want to be for a fluke to come up and eat it. But that kind of becomes like a crutch. I feel like you catch a lot more shorts when you're fishing shallow water, either from shore or like inshore, boat or kayak. And you're dealing with, 10 to 1, 20 to 1 shorts when you use a teaser. The single jig that we use is just your ratio increases dramatically, and it just catches bigger fish on average. Now, once you're out, fishing the reefs, 50, 60, 70 feet of water, that's a different kind of fishing. And frankly, that's the kind of fluke fishing I'm not that interested in. Like I want to catch fluke and pretend like they're a freshwater bass, just always on the bottom. That's size tackle that I like to engage in when it comes to fluking. So
I can understand that.
yeah.
I mean, we like to do everything, honestly. I mean, I haven't met the fishing yet that I wouldn't do again. I obviously have my preferences.
Yeah.
But it reminds me of porgy. Like if I can't fish for porgy on super light gear, like if there's too much current or it's too deep, I don't want to do it. I don't need to crank up a porgy with 5 ounces of lead attached to it. Like I just don't need to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of how I look at fluke. Is once I realize how aggressive they are, I just see them as a flat largemouth, maybe more like a smallmouth, because they don't really get moody, or at least the whole season that we encounter fluke, they're not post spawn or like they're here to feed. Like they spawn out on the shelf over the winter, and by the time we see them in late spring, like they're here just fatten up for the entire summer. So they're pretty aggressive, and later when we talk about jerk baits and stuff, I mean it just that kind of opened up a whole new avenue for me.
Yeah, that actually looks really cool. We could touch on that in a little bit, but just real quick. So basically, the whole fluke season, from the time they show up to the time they all kind of head back out of there, you're kind of fishing for them the same way in generally the same areas, just covering water, or do you really focus in on certain things during like early season versus late season?
Yeah, so in the most general terms, the early season fluking, like I would say up until late May, is predominantly a back bay thing. So, rivers, back bays, warmer water, and that's generally where the food chain starts. They
Right.
they gorge themselves on grass shrimp. Like most of the fluke will be puking up shrimp. And then after that will be sort of a period where they're eating a lot of juvenile crabs. Like I don't know what species, like calicos or something. They'll be puking up a lot of that stuff. And it's really not until mid-June or so, depending on the year. I mean, now there's no more patterns. Every year is so different in terms of the weather. But like the bait fish, once the bait fish comes in, then the out front open beach kind of scenario happens. And then for the rest of the season, it's kind of both. The back bay stuff kind of dies off around July when the water temperature spikes. But then before they leave, sometimes the back bay stuff could get really good again because of all the bait. Yeah.
And when you're targeting them, it sounds like when you're targeting them out front, you kind of have these couple. It sounds like you could just pack a couple of different lures, maybe 3 or 4, and you're good to go. When they're in the back, do you adjust to what they're puking up? Like, do you change your jig or anything?
No,
Don't matter.
no. I mean, the only thing that matters is like the first few weeks when the water temps are still in the upper 50s, your jigging cadence has to slow down. Like you don't want to pop it as high. They're not going to come up as high. It's kind of like, again, this is like freshwater jigging. It's like dragging a football jig in the winter. Versus in the summer you'll be popping it off the bottom. But
if they're puking up crabs, you don't usually have to change. You don't have to put like a crab gulp on there. You stick with that same gulp.
Yeah, and I mentioned this in my videos. Like they're among the least match the hatch kind of fisheries. Like gulp is just Berkeley got very lucky with gulp when it comes to fluke because as far as I understand, it was developed for walleye, and someone on the East Coast figured out that fluke will eat gulp. And I always imagine like Berkeley execs just like going, "What the fuck is happening?" When like they were flying off the shelves in the Northeast. But hats off to them because they've developed that whole line. Till now, like this year, I've been seeing some colors that almost look like plastisol base, like they're translucent and there's glitter in them. But yeah, I mean, gulp is just the equalizer. When fluke, and which is weird because to me, fluke is a very visual kind of predator. But when they smell that gulp in the water, it's just like crack. They like almost doesn't matter what shape it is or what color it is, as long as it has the right movement, in my opinion.
Now, if someone, let's say someone was interested, they want to watch this stuff, and they want
Joe, get your lips off the microphone.
Wait, something wrong with my mic? My lips ain't on it.
It sounded like you were making love to the microphone. It was really loud.
Is it fixed?
Yeah, you're good.
If someone wanted to get involved with this, how much does it cost? Where do they go? How do you sign up for it? You want to explain that?
In terms of the lesson stuff?
The lessons and the cooking stuff. Cooking stuff's involved too, right?
No, there's no cooking involved whatsoever.
So you don't share the cooking?
Yeah, like I might do some catch and cook videos later this year, but in terms of lessons, so now I'm not doing any more in-person lessons. So everything is the virtual course. So they go to cookingandfishing.com and they sign up. For the lessons, you have to sign up and then log in. And I think it's $68. And it's 7 videos. And it's when it first started, it was over 3 hours. And then I was like, no one's watching, there's no way. So I cut it down to about 53, 54 minutes. And yeah, and then people can watch it. And the other thing is, if they have any questions, they can DM me or email me. And I'm more than happy to talk through whatever technical support they need. Like I've had people who bought the lesson, shoot a short clip of them jigging. And they're like, am I doing this right? Or someone setting the hook. And that's all fair game.
And
that's pretty
Joe
cool.
Joe doesn't know because he didn't look at it, even though I sent it to him.
I
But
don't have $68.
all right, whatever, Joe. I sent you the video. Take a look at it. But I did look. I didn't get through the whole thing yet.
Oh,
But I just wanted to say, so I got our buddy Luke.
I'm just kidding. I saw it. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw it.
Bullshit. So
Oh,
Luke,
give me a break, dude.
all right, let me get through this. So Luke also loves fishing from shore, but
God.
unlike most of us, he has no choice. He gets super seasick. So if he wants a saltwater fish, he's got to do it from shore. And he recently started fluke fishing from shore. I don't think he watched your lessons, but he's watched a lot of your videos, and he's kind of been learning from there. And
See, that's what I've seen the free stuff. I haven't seen the pay for stuff that you sent.
Okay, well, let me just tell you.
Okay.
I did watch a good portion of the pay lessons, and I texted Luke and I said, "Luke, I know you think I'd rather go on a boat than shore fishing, but I just watched these videos and I feel like I can destroy you now. Let's go fluke fishing from shore."
Really? Does it look fun? Are we gonna try it? I mean, I'll do it.
I honestly, after watching those videos, I felt like I want to go shore fishing. I'll give it a try.
Can we go with him? Because I don't feel like exploring. Like I just want to go with him, and I'll just go to the good places.
If you pay him, he'll take you.
Roger, can I go with you?
Of course. We can set that up offline.
And Luke isn't allowed to come. It's just me.
No, I mean the virtual lesson is as granular as I can make it without kind of overloading people with information.
It's very like technical, Joe. It's like if someone was teaching you how, like if you had never played a sport before, just say baseball, and someone was trying to like teach you through a video, and they have these too. And it's like any other physical activity. You have to go and do it, but you have to know you're doing it right. And it kind of, his videos really take you step by step into like the every little mechanic of what you're doing to kind of accomplish.
And now, I mean, it's even possible if you wanted to like somehow suddenly get something else out that you feel like you had to get out, you could add a 8th chapter to it or whatever, right? Like
right,
you could.
Exactly. I mean, it allows me to edit. So far, although I am gathering feedback, there's probably some things I can clarify a little bit better, and that would be like a winter project. So even people who bought it, once I updated, they will get whatever.
It's almost like buying a book, but the book keeps adding to itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's definitely a possibility. But like Chris was saying, is my other kind of life destroying hobby is pool. Like I used to sort of live in pool halls, and I managed a couple too. And I used to teach people how to shoot pool. And just like golf, just like baseball, like Chris was saying, it's like a physical execution that you need the right fundamentals for. And that's how I kind of look at fishing. Not all of it, but at least, in terms of the jigging action, like you want to impart a certain action on your jig. And there's not 100 ways to do it. There's really only one. Like one way to get the speed you want on the jig that doesn't tire you out. And then the other would be like the hook set, your rod angles while fighting a fish. Like if you want to increase your landing percentage, there's a certain way to do things. And that's the kind of stuff that I get into. And there's plenty of people who just watch the YouTube stuff and they can see what I'm doing, but I'm just not going into as much detail because that's not, like the YouTube channel is more for entertainment and, little tips and tricks. So that's why they're kind of separate. But yeah, I mean that's kind of my approach to fishing, and that's like back to smallmouth just for 1 second. I got into spy baiting for one summer. And when I first started, I would lose literally 40% of the fish that I hooked. And it took me like a month to figure out how to, first you can't use braid. Like it has to be straight fluoro. Then the rod has to be a certain action, then you play around with the hooks. So it's that whole process, and I personally find that process very enjoyable, especially if you succeed at the end of it.
See,
Yeah.
we call that process suffering. That's why it says suffering on the back of our shirts.
Yeah.
Because basically everything other than actually catching the fish itself to us is suffering.
Yeah, I mean, it's the stuff that keeps you up at night, when
Oh,
4
yeah.
or 5 pound smallmouth jumps off, and then it happens 3 more times, and you're like, what, like what
Yeah.
happened?
You know how there's certain fish like you don't forget, like
Yeah.
I had a smallmouth in the Delaware River. I was just bouncing up and down a blade bait, a Binsky.
Okay.
It wasn't really like a giant smallmouth, but it wasn't a huge. It wasn't huge, but it wasn't small. But just like the way that how hard that fish hit the blade bait, I'll never forget this fish. It was like the most violent.
Yeah.
Like I just went to lift the vibrating blade up, and it hit it like it just free. They're incredible. They're just amazing.
And by the way, the blade bait is another bait that, people do a lot of tweaking to up their landing percentage. Any of those like small, heavy baits that when they jump, if it's outside their mouth and they have the leverage, it's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
I was about to. I really thought you were about to tell me you're flicking blade baits for Fluke.
I've caught a lot of Fluke on lipless crankbaits.
I was gonna
really?
say, I there's no reason it wouldn't work. Why wouldn't it work?
But
You
what
need
I
to
found
fish
out,
from a boat. It's hard to fish from shore, isn't it? A blade bait.
well, the thing with that type of bait is it's not as interesting to me for Fluke as say a jerk bait because it's basically a jig, and I use jigs all the time anyway because it sinks, right? But what I found out is for lipless crankbaits, it's very situational, and basically they have to be heavy on peanut bunker. So for that 2 or 3 weeks, later in the summer, when they're heavy on peanut bunker, that could really, like you can catch a lot of fish on that. But before that, they don't really like you'll catch 1 or 2. But yeah.
Those white rattle traps with the black dot on them is basically a mirror image of those peanut bunker when they're packed in there. I mean,
yeah, but I go a little heavier. Like one of the best ones is it's probably the only Rapala bait I use. It's the Rip and Wrap, and it has a very quick fall, and it has sort of a swim on the fall. And the way to fish that is when they're keyed in on peanut bunker, and I'm not talking like you see a couple schools of peanut. Like I'm saying, every Fluke you catch is just puking peanut bunker. That's use that kind of stuff, and it's a really hard rip, and you let it free fall, so no tension in the line at all. And that speed is what like when that thing crashes through a school of peanuts, and it just falls right towards the Fluke's head. They just open their mouth, and you'll lose quite a few because, like I said, like the landing percentage is not great. But that's why the only time that you can put like a limit plus catch together from shore with lipless crankbait.
Well, it's a lot. It's a lot different fighting fish on the vertical than it is on the horizontal.
Yeah.
And basically, from surf fishing, you're always on the horizontal, which is like the worst case scenario from a boat.
Yeah.
I mean, you basically have no choice.
Yeah, fluke are among the trickiest. Like I would rather land a fluke on a gently sloping sandy beach than, say a kayak. Because
Really?
yeah, because fluke is probably the trickiest fish that I deal with when it comes to netting. Like they can a lot of times like they'll play dead and they'll come up really easy until they're about a foot underneath the surface. And what a lot of people do is like they'll pull them within a few inches of the surface and then they start thrashing. They can also swim in reverse almost at full speed. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
ever experienced that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
I
gonna
have
bring that
to.
up.
I fully 100% agree. The fluke is, of all fish, it's the most nerve-wracking fish to get at the rail because
Yeah,
they can spit the hook any moment, especially at the surface,
yeah.
and they have to be netted immediately or they will be gone. They are tricky to net.
And I've seen because I really started fluke jigging on party boats. So I have seen a lot of giant fluke get lost. And a lot of it, what I found out later, it happens on the hook set. People don't realize this because a lot of times guys are using like 3, 4 ounce jigs. And that size of lead with the hook point behind it, a lot of times the fluke will clamp on the jig head. And
Yeah.
people do this kind of weak little, wrist hook set, and it never breaks that jaw clamp, and that hook never sank into any meat. That
Yeah.
fluke will come up 70 feet, just refusing to let go of the jig head. And
Yeah.
then, once they see the boat or once they break surface, they open their mouth and the entire jig flies out. And people think the hook ripped out. No, like you never even got a hook in them.
Yeah.
And
Plus,
yeah,
at that depth and with a hook that thick, you
yeah,
got to set the hook that much harder to
right,
begin with, even if it's a fish that's biting normally. The fish it's just like what you're saying, that just the shape of their mouth, the way they attack something and the way they bite it, it's just like what you said. Yeah, 100%.
yeah. And that's, it's almost, I would say 80% of that kind of, mishap at the side of the boat is because the hook was never really firmly in that fish. And that's why I made a whole video on hook set mechanics. Because I think that's a very familiar thing for freshwater guys. At least, you know, people who throw jigs a lot in freshwater, and if you watch all the pros fish, there's not like a million different jig hook sets. There's really just one. Like they come tight to that jig and they swing across their shoulder. And there's a reason for that, because that's the most amount of line you can move. But
Yeah.
then with fluking or sort of in saltwater in general, I see all kinds of hook sets. Like it's just all over the map. And I think that really is one of the key things. Yeah, but fluke are tricky. Like out front when we land fluke, there's wave action to take into consideration. Like you have to time it, right? Just like any fish that you're trying to land in the surf zone. So
Yeah, fluke are just especially tricky. I gotta agree with Joe too. Like that landing of the fluke, I call it the magic carpet ride because they could just like it's not like a normal fish, right? That does like a head shake. Their
yeah,
whole body starts going, and they're trying to. They can swim backwards, like you said,
yeah,
and they get this whipping action on their thing, and it's so nerve wracking because you can't just kind of. If I have a striper hooked at the boat side and the net's not ready or whatever, I can kind of swim it in a circle, keep that
right.
pressure on it, keep them moving with the hook in. When the fluke comes up, you know you're not going to get to do
Yeah.
that. He's
Well,
going to
fluke,
do something.
yeah, like the right thing to do is the exact same thing, but your movements have to be very smooth. Like if you're waiting for the net on a party boat, you want to keep that fish 2 or 3 feet below the surface, and you want to do very slow figure eights. Like you don't want to turn them quickly. You just kind of
Yeah,
want to, don't accelerate, don't slow down, just keep it, same slow speed. That kind of puts them to sleep. And a lot of times, if you're casting out and you set the hook, that fish will come in super easy because you're coming in like this and there's no water resistance until you get vertical. And then you feel that dead weight. That's when your net man should be ready completely.
Yeah, good luck with that on a party boat. But
Yeah,
I want to ask one more question, and then I'll let you go.
well, don't forget we want to touch on the jigs real quick too.
Well, we'll touch on the jigs, but I got one.
I mean the jerk baits. Sorry.
The jerk baits. I got one question before I forget. No, so New Jersey now has pretty much become like the premier striper state of the coast. We definitely have world record blackfish territory down in the Cape May waters. Where do we rank on the coast on the fluke scale? Are we one of the better fluking states? Are we one of the shittier ones? Are we?
We're at least for now, we're definitely one of the better ones. I would say, in terms of the different ways you can target fluke, we're probably the best one. Like we have the most beach access. South Shore, Long Island, yes, but then you get to North Shore, it's all private. Connecticut, Rhode. I mean, it's all and they don't really have beaches. I know the Nantucket stuff is very good, but that's that's a charter or party boat trip. As far as I know, here at least come late July, you have a choice to go out on the reefs to fluke. You're catching them from shore, still in the back bays. It's just very good access in New Jersey. And also, I think we're sort of we might be in like the southern end of their population zone now, whereas 20, 30 years ago, they used to be off the coast of North Carolina.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys read.
They're moving more north.
Yeah. I mean, there's, whatever anyone's politics are, that's what's happening. And either the fishery managers have to deal with that. If they don't account for that in their models, then they're kind of failing at their job.
Yeah, I mean, it's no matter what politics you believe in, it's either climate change or global warming. It's one or the other. There's no way around either.
But whether or not, how people want to deal with that doesn't. But if you're just talking about fisheries management or fisheries science, that's a sort of a crucial thing that they have to deal with, and it doesn't help anyone to say that it's not happening.
No, it's undeniable that it's
like Jersey. I would say it's pretty good, especially when you consider the great fishing we have in the New York metro area. Like, I don't think there's another world capital that has the quality of fishing that we do. Like all the species you just named, bluefish. I think most of the world will kill for the bluefish that we have. Like they make
me and Chris, we say it all the time. This is one of it could be one of the, if not the, well, everyone's gonna rant and rave about Florida, but New Jersey, if you add the saltwater and freshwater together, the fishing opportunity and diversity is unbelievable. It's definitely underlooked by other states for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say that it. Now, I personally think that the striper fishing could absolutely be a destination.
Oh yeah.
Like I think, and I saw the picture you guys post. I mean, it's crazy. But
when we actually post those pictures, we get messages from people all over the country asking for a charter to who's a good charter to book because they want to come for that.
Yeah, and this is sort of a tangent, but I personally don't understand why the striper couldn't be managed like how they do tarpon down in Florida. Like, there's no reason anyone would kill a striper that size, right? But yet, and I'm friends with a lot of party boat captains, and I respect what they do. It seems like the tackle industry and the party boat industry, that's what they argue for at every meeting is, let us kill more fish. Let us, take,
Yeah.
and I always I remember years ago on NJ Fishing, I get into these debates with these people and I'm like, why don't you have your mates, wear a GoPro and do a charter where it's the emphasis is on, you you get a video clip or something, and then every fish gets released. You don't have to keep anything. Half these people are not out there for meat anyway.
No.
So
And also, like the guy said last week, when you hand a guy two 27-inch striper fillets, he usually takes it home, eats a 7-inch piece, and the rest of it gets thrown out in freezer burn.
Yeah.
You could release the fish all day, and 4 guys could split one fish. I mean, they have enough for everyone.
Yeah, and fish is supposed to be sort of not a treat, but guys who stuff their freezer is sort of that's not really the way to go. Like you want to eat what's in season, and then maybe have a couple fillets for the winter. That's obviously fine, but it's like it's gonna be. Yeah.
I think the answer is to teach people how to hunt, because you can fill your freezer with deer and that's still going to taste 100% great the same.
New Jersey's deer laws are not made for conservation. They're set up for eradication. Like it's literally unlimited does for 4 months every day.
And
so
you
you could shoot 15,000 deer if you as many as you could shoot, you could have them.
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
That's really what's needed. I mean, they're severely overpopulated and they have no predators except for the hunters.
So you're saying now kill all deer and release all fish?
I mean, look, no, I'm never going to say kill all of everything, but you're nowhere near killing. You're never going to exterminate the deer. That's not the point of it.
And I think the participation on hunting is declining like year after year.
It's bad.
So,
it's real bad.
I mean, I personally have no interest in hunting, but.
And let me just real quick. I know we're going on another tangent here. Hold on. I just want to say, like, kind of what Joe said. Why? Because, and I was going to say, yeah, they let you shoot as many does as you want, but the hunting properties and like the rules about where you can, that's where they really cock block you on. And that's what turned me off for years. That's why I never tried it. It just seemed like such a pain in the ass.
Yeah. So, I mean, like my dad was a big hunter and I went with him on, never shot a deer, but, turkey and I think geese. But, there's something about fighting a fish. Okay, I mean, we're all kind of torturing animals for our amusement. But, shooting a mammal when I don't really need to, I mean, it's just, but I completely agree with Joe. Or actually, I don't know. Maybe I agree with you, Chris. Take all the deer. Like the deer, they're in no danger whatsoever. I see them everywhere. So
if someone doesn't want to kill and eat the animal, that's fine. I'm not saying everyone has to do that, but I wish more people would do. I mean.
Yeah.
What if they came out with catch and release hunting, Chris, where you could shoot the deer with a trank gun, take a picture with it, and then let it go? Would you do it?
That just seems weird to me.
Yeah, maybe a ball or something.
I don't know.
Fish and let it go. It's fine, but catch and release hunting.
That's why I'm laughing. I'm laughing because you're kind of making a good point, but it's weird.
Yeah, no, it's like fishing for me is and this is the last thing I was like, I really do feel in 100 years time, people will look back and be like, man, they're just, because that's what I don't keep many fish these days, mainly because I'm lazy and I don't want to cook and I don't want to do any of that. But, the option of releasing fish is, but at the same time, I don't pretend like I'm doing the fish a favor by catching it. And some of these smallmouth I've caught like 5 times. I caught the same almost 22-inch smallmouth twice in 2 weeks, which was great because it meant, like my fish handling was on point and it swam off strong and this and that.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's like, man, that must suck to be a fish. So
Do
You
you
just
think 100 years
You
from
just
now?
whisper in his ear like, "You're stupid."
yeah.
Do you think 100 years from now they'll be watching this YouTube video saying "What's a fluke" as they eat
Oh,
their can that says meat and they don't
yeah,
even know what
yeah,
it is?
God, I hope not.
yeah. It's very possible, but it's
Can I thank him now, Chris, and say goodbye to him, or do you
No,
have
because I
more?
wanted to mention the jerk baits real quick, and
No.
then we talked
You have
about
to pay
8
for that if
different
you want to see that. You got to pay.
Well, actually, I was gonna say I didn't. Did I just not get to the part about the jerk baits yet, or is that not in there?
jerk bait is not part of that is just the light single jigging. And to me, that's the baseline. Like
You
anyone who
catch
just
fluke
wants
on
to
jerk
catch,
baits?
yeah, like anyone who just wants
What?
to catch keeper, um,
Wait a minute.
single jig is what they should be using.
You throw jerk baits for
Yeah.
fluke?
Actually,
Insane.
I think I told Chris like they did. They interviewed me for an article on the water on the
Yeah.
jerk bait stuff, and that came out, which is fun to see yourself referred to by your last name in the article. But yeah, jerkbait, I think 2 years ago I posted up the first video, and that day I think I had 15 keepers on the jerkbait.
What gave you that idea?
Again, I was just trying to. Well, first of all, I was obsessed with the jerkbait in freshwater. It just seemed like the
Is it a
most.
sinking jerk bait or a
No,
suspended?
no, it's the exact. Like I'll show you. Like I brought some of these. This is the first one that I threw. I don't know if you can see that. So that one is the Duo 120 SP.
Hold on, Roger. 1 second. I think
Can
we
you-
lost you for a second there.
Technical difficulties. Are you wearing waders when you do this?
No. I mean, these are spots I find, that have sort of a deeper cut. And it's also season, like it's sort of seasonal. Like the jerkbait will catch them.
See, that's where I get confused. How do you find spots with a deeper cut? Do you go swimming?
No,
Do you
no.
walk the beach
Just-
at low tide and look at it? Like,
Yeah, no. I mean those couple of videos were from the back bay, and no real wave action, a little bit of current. That's a bait driven bite, just like the lipless crankbait. Like I'm looking for tons of bait fish, peanut bunker, mullet, that kind of thing. And yeah, like jerkbait, like I've been trying to catch jerkbait fish in freshwater for years. Has some success, but I don't know if you throw the jerkbait in Jersey a lot. Our season is very short.
Yeah.
Like you might
For
get a
small
week
amount.
and a half, 2 weeks where you can just go out and you need the right conditions during that time. But Jersey bass are some of the most pressured fish. So then I have thousands of dollars worth of jerk baits, and I'm like, well, maybe a fluke will hit one, right? My first day, and I got completely lucky because it was the right spot, it was the right time. My first cast, I think I had a fish like 21 or 22 inches, and I was like, holy shit. So then I just started running
That's
with that,
cool.
like I started bringing all my freshwater jerk baits, testing them out one by one, and it just went from there. And today, it's probably my favorite way to catch them is on the jerk bait.
You're
I'd
like
ima-
making
I'd
me want to
imagine that
challenge.
pretty-
You're making me want to challenge myself to try to get a keeper from the beach now, because I don't think I've ever done that either.
Oh,
I've never tried much.
Dude, watch the damn video I
I'm
sent
going
you.
fishing with him. I'm not watching the videos. I'm going with him. All right,
Make
we got
him-
one more question, and then we have to let him go because I'm tired. Tides and moon phases. You pay attention at all, or are you just going fishing when you have time anyway?
Well, both. I mean, you should go fishing whenever, but tide plays some role, especially early season. So in the back bays, for most spots, the outgoing is going to be better. It's a little bit warmer water. and then at some point it switches to the incoming. Then it's the cooler ocean water. But other than that, like I tend to fish the moment when it comes to fluke. So what I really care about is number one is the current direction. So when you're jigging or throwing the dirt bait or throwing anything, like you want your bait to go with the current, and that way you can really go as light as you can, and it also looks the most natural. So if there's a moon tide, you might have to go a little heavier if you're fishing inlets or something. But usually from the beach, from most bay or surf spots, it's the same 1/4 ounce jig, and you just adapt by elongating the glide or not. Anyway, that like Chris said is in the videos. So,
Okay. Video.
yeah.
He's not gonna
Roger,
give all the
I
information.
want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on the NJ Multi-Species podcast, and also for taking time out of your time to take me fishing. It's appreciated. Chris, anything to
What?
say? Wanna say bye?
Yeah, Roger, I just want to try to convince you to not take Joe fishing. Make him watch the video first.
Right.
And just one last question: do you ever use bobbers for fluke fishing?
No.
No, Bob.
I've seen those guys on the beach. I mean, there's a lot of people using a slip bobber with killies.
They can work. I told
That
you,
sounds
Joe.
like I love
told you.
killies. Chris
Yeah.
never lets me bring killies, but I love them.
Because you wanna
Roger,
use-
thank you so much. I will see you soon for fishing when you call me.
Great.
And we really appreciate having you on, man. Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Nice
Take
talking to you, Roger.
Guys, please just keep in mind, if you like the stuff that me and Chris do, one of our sponsors, njfishing.com, Jerry Zagorski, 27 years as the #1 fishing resource in New Jersey. Jerry helps us with a lot of the things that we do. And his forum is where we get a lot of information from, in which we use to catch fish.
Yeah, I mean, without NJ Fishing and Jerry, a lot of the events we do and things like that wouldn't be possible. It's free to sign up. Head on over there. Make sure, if you're not a member yet, I don't know what rock you've been living under, definitely sign up. Check it out. If you want to have a discussion, an in-depth discussion, that's the place to do it. You want to do it on Facebook, you're just going to get a bunch of trolls. There's no trolls on njfishing.com. It's straight up information and discussion.
All right, that was Roger I. Really cool guest who's going to take me fishing soon. We have to go because it's late and I'm tired. Who's the guest next week?
Next week we have. I just want to say real quick also, with the whole shore fishing for the fluke, most of the guys I see shore fishing for fluke, especially in the back bay, they're using killies.
I love killies.
Roger literally, there's no live bait. I know he didn't say it, but trust, he's on all his videos. There's no live bait.
I love killies.
It's literally just that gulp on the jig. Next week we got our buddy Chuck's coming back on.
Chuck Manny.
Chuck Manny is coming
cool.
back on.
I got another funny video to post. Trip Chuck. If you're watching this, it's Friday. That means it's Father's Day weekend. Happy Father's Day to all you fathers out there. Hope you're all going fishing or golfing or playing pickleball if you're Jerry.
What? Just go fishing. Why would you do any of that other stuff?
Jerry likes pickleball. We actually had our first multi-species mayhem golf outing Sunday. Me, Max, and Kevin went golfing, and Max snuck a BFS rod onto the golf course in the golf bag, and I have videos of him catching a bluegill.
A bluegill? He couldn't even catch a bass?
He caught one small baby bass, too, and Kevin was so mad because I guess, like, Kevin's a member of this country club, and, like, me and Max are there, like, him and Kevin and his friend are putting, and me and Max are fishing, like, filming a video.
Max has never played golf in his life. He 100% just went there so that he could sneak a rod in his bag and fish.
Whatever. All right, so we basically had Chuck Manny on in episode number 3 or 4 when no one ever heard of us. Now we're famous as hell, so we're bringing him back on to give it another shot.
Oh, my God.
Right, Chris?
No, that's ridiculous.
It is.
Basically,
but
when we first
now we've
talked-
also now we finally went fishing with him, so it's more
yeah,
cool
that's
stuff.
the main thing. We had not fished with him at that point when we talked to him, so we could only ask so many things and talk about so many things. We didn't really know what he was doing. Now we've seen it firsthand multiple times. You know, I consider him a friend now, and
I don't.
the
He's
coolest
mine.
part, he does not keep any secrets. He does not care. He will share everything. So
All right, he'll share it next week.
Yeah,
We're
we're going to be
done.
able to
That's
get
it.
more in depth about what he's actually doing if you're interested in this unreal trophy striped bass fishery that we have. It's the tail end of it / kind of over at this point because of all the bluefish and dogfish and stuff, but you can do it in the fall too, next year, whatever. It's all, you know.
If you have questions for Chuck Manny, email us at njmultispecies@gmail.com by next Monday at 6 p.m. We will read your questions to Chuck Manny. All right, everyone, have a good night.
Take care. Keep suffering.